It's 8:04 or 6:04. Good Lord. It's 6:04.
It's 8:04.
I know, I'm in trouble. We missed the whole meeting. So, first of all, I need a motion to accept the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Great. Now I want to change it.
My fault.
Are these the right agenda topics?
Oh, that's right. That's a good question, Derek. But actually, what I wanted to do was, under governance process, that is going to be longer than 50 minutes. And if we need to discuss anything under the consent agenda, we're going to table that stuff to next meeting because we really need the full 2 hours to discuss task force stuff. Is everybody okay with that? So we can go through, we can do the consent agenda, but if you want to talk about policies or anything like that, we're going to table that discussion until our next meeting in October. Is that okay? All right, anything else? Let's see. Yeah, so other than that, I think the agenda's good. So the other thing I wanted to notify you of is that it does say our meeting will adjourn at 7:30. I just want to brace you, it's probably going to be more like 8 o'clock.
We'll try and move fast.
Yeah, so.
I noticed we have our student rep. Is that on here? Am I not seeing it? Am I blind?
I don't see your student rep on here, but what we can do is we can put that underneath, or we can put it under communications with parents, citizens, and staff.
Oh, yeah.
Is that okay? All right.
My apologies, Livia did tell me she'd be here, but I think the agenda was already out.
All right, and I'm going to move consent agenda above governance process so that we don't have to worry about doing any of that stuff after. Everybody okay with that?
Friendly amendment, yes, we'll take it.
Perfect. So, all those that approve the agenda with the revisions that I suggested, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Great, thank you. So next thing we're going to do communications with parents, citizens, and staff. Olivia, if you would like to give your report now,
sure,
that would be great.
Okay. Nice to see everyone.
Nice to see you. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. So right now we're in our fall season for sports. So field hockey, there's a boys soccer game today, girls soccer and football. And homecoming, when we all have home games, is the weekend after this. And for theater, they're rehearsing for their musical, The Wedding Singer, coming out in November time. And student council, we're creating different subcommittees this year so we can really tackle certain issues or subjects throughout the school. So a few of the subcommittees right now, one, we're hoping to start an environmental club, so hoping to bring composting to the school and work on the recycling. And we wanted to have something this Friday for the climate change walkout, so we're trying to plan something for that. And another committee we started was the rewrite of the student handbook. So we thought Edward and I talked about how cool it would be to have a student perspective. We're rewriting part of the handbook that isn't consistent throughout the school and having a student voice with that. So that's our plan throughout the school year to get that in place. Another group is redoing the weight room, making it more safe for students in there because it's falling apart in some areas, as well as a PBIS committee where they're focusing on the aspects of PBIS behind, but also the assemblies that we've had and having students run it instead of just the teachers, making it more involved with the students. So that's what, and then also the international club started, which is talking about cultures and traveling. So that's what's been going on. Yeah.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Olivia? Well, thank you very much for that. That's awesome to know that you guys are off to a huge start here at the beginning of the school year. Yes, Derek?
I have one question. Who's organizing the environmental club?
I'm talking with Miss Valcor and Miss Krutzer, hopefully, to get that started.
Great.
Yeah, two teachers.
I have one thing I'd like to add.
Sure.
So at some point we are looking to engage students in some of our processes to bring forward the task force initiatives. And you seem pretty engaged with your student body, so at some point I may want to pick your brain a little bit to try and reach out to some students. We have emails and stuff going home, with parents, but that's not really direct to students.
Right.
And you see we have some really interested staff members here tonight and faculty, so that's why we want to keep that process going with students as well. And I can talk to you more offline about that. Your dad definitely can fill you in on that too, but maybe we look at how we can sort of get students engaged.
Involved,
Definitely. You know, not as regularly, but I think there's going to be some critical points that we want student voice and engagement for sure. Yeah.
Great. Awesome. So, being that you're our other citizens, parents, and staff, other than task force, anything you'd like to say to the board? No? Well, we'll get to you guys in just a minute. Okay. So we're going to skip governance process for just a minute, and we're going to go right into consent agenda. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
This is to table?
Nope, this is to actually do it unless you have questions about policies and whatnot.
I see what you're saying. No.
Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstaining? Great, consent agenda is approved. And then, did you want to do a superintendent's report?
Very, very briefly,
Okay.
because I don't want to take our time. You have it in writing. That's it. The legislative session hasn't really started yet. I do have, the superintendents have scheduled a couple meetings with the legislators. Tomorrow, I am part of the Vermont Superintendents Association doing a celebration of public school education. It's at Williston Central School, so I'm hoping that you will see me on the news for that, because that would mean that we got coverage. But we'll have some legislators present and colleges and early childhood folks, and really celebrating public education. I will not be here at your October 2nd meeting. I will be out of the country from October 1st to October 15th. And so I will have Brenda come to that meeting.
Great. Any questions for Jean? Okay, great. So at this time, I'm going to introduce Allison Popa. She is been working with us tirelessly on the task force, and she has brought us some information and to help us start rolling out what we're going to do.
So thank you for joining us. I'm going to talk through the format of tonight's meeting, and I touch base with Lauren. After we do this initial sort of discussion about what the key initiatives are that we're going to be talking about as a board as a result of the task force work. If at that point, so just so everybody knows how the format of this evening is going to go, I'm going to talk through the initiative, sort of talk to what the responsibilities of, or the commitment for any community members, staff, students, you know, and what that might look like moving forward. We don't exactly know yet because this is really our planning session as a board. These guys are going to be, so after this presentation, we're going to actually determine which board members are going to be on which subcommittees. When I spoke with Lori earlier today, you're going to have first choice. If there's ones that we talk about and you're like, yes, I really want to be a part of that particular subcommittee, like exploring an enhanced middle school, then you can do that. If you don't really have much of a opinion on which subcommittee you want to join, we'll likely just count off by 5, and you guys will just break out into your subcommittees at that point. Lori and I will be sort of facilitating what those conversations are going to look like, because really what I want to leave with today is timing and some next steps, because there are some things that we need to get moving on really quickly. Others, like the ambassadors and how do we sort of support ambassadors, that's a little bit more open-ended, and we got to determine what that might look like. Strategic board engagement, you know, it's not as cut and dry as, you know, next steps for engaging community on an enhanced middle school, exploring the enhanced middle school. So I'm going to talk through the initiatives. If you guys have questions coming out of that, we'll answer those questions. At that point, if you want to leave for tonight, you can. Or if you're feeling really like psyched and you want to stay, you can do that too. And so that's really going to be the breakout sessions for the board. After you guys break out tonight, we're going to come back as a group and we're going to sort of debrief the group on what you discussed in your subcommittees, the relevant stuff, because there is going to be some fluidity between groups, right? And the way I see this sort of happening, I said to Lori, I have a vision. I'm not sure it's going to flow as it should, you know, because we're going to have to sort of figure out how we all work together and make sure that we're actually getting stuff done. But one example of that may be your communications team might say, okay, we need to engage our ambassadors to help spread a certain message. So how do our groups sort of work together to get that done? So there's going to be, you know, some cohesiveness there. And then the purpose of the breakout sessions is to really like nail down some firm, like for example, you know, Lori's going to speak for the enhanced middle school, exploring the enhanced middle school, and is the community interested? We got to hit the Harvest Fest on the 6th. You know what I mean? So there's some things coming up pretty quickly, and we got to determine what we need for that. There's some.
Is this your entertainment for us?
It is. It's just very impromptu. What I did want to start with, though, and I'm going to sort of turn this to you guys as well. At our last meeting, I spoke to the board members, and I said, okay, what is your why as to why you're engaged on the board? And why you're doing this. Why are you giving your time to do this? And so I typed up all your answers. I didn't attribute anything. I'm sure some of you might figure out who's who and what's what. But I left out, like, you know, what town you live in, that sort of thing, to keep it somewhat anonymous. So I'm going to take you guys through sort of your whys as to why you expressed to me when, you know, at last meeting, why you're doing this. And I'd like you to sort of think about that as well, because there is a reason that you're here, and there's a reason you want to be engaged. It may be just as simple as someone told you to be here to start, but that's probably going to evolve as you hear more about what we've been working on and going to continue to work on. So click. So, you know, one person said, too few of our youngsters are developing the skills, attributes, and knowledge they need to have a future full of option. One concern was that foreign language would be eliminated due to an issue of equity, and I'm proud that as a board we managed to provide foreign language to all of our elementary schools. So as you'll see, some reasons are very specific and some are a little bit more broad. You can click, Greg. I believe education is the most important thing we can do, and so serving on this board is something I am committed to and see as a privilege. And to ensure that our administration is held accountable, staff, students, parents, and families need to be treated fairly and respectfully. I wanted to be a voice for my little town and school. I want to learn more about small town politics, specifically to learn how budgets are put together. I believe in the concept of community and understand that a successful community requires people to contribute time and effort, and this is my contribution as a parent. I ran for school board because I was asked by my peers, and I viewed this as a call to involvement. I have 3 children in the supervisory union. And being a parent of 2 children that are just entering the school system, I realized how much education has changed over the years, and I highly value education. I desired to get involved and learn about our local education system. So one resounding theme is definitely that everyone's invested in education and making sure that, you know, everyone receives an equitable education, which is exactly what, you know, the task force worked to do when they, you know, sort of came up with the initiatives that we're going to discuss next. I did want Lori to talk to why, I mean, you probably understand a little bit why it's important to go beyond the board and get other members of the community and staff and students engaged in this process. But Lori, if you could just speak to that a little bit, I think that would be helpful.
So I think part of it is that over the last couple of years as a board, we have not gone out and engaged the community, and the community has felt like we have not been as forthcoming, or maybe we just haven't been able to get the information out as best we can when we make a decision or when we want to do something. So when the task force finished their work and we talked in June, it became quite apparent through that whole process that the more that we can involve the community members and our staff and our students and us and talk back and forth and keep a dialogue open, it's important. You know, the 3 things that came out of the task force, one of them being a middle school model here at Otter Valley. It's important that we get that message out as to what our options are and to get the feedback from those members of our community, including staff, as to, you know, does this make sense? Do you want to do this? Is there something else you would prefer us to do? We just need to make sure that we are engaging the community and that we have to make decisions that are right for the school board, but we also have to make sure that you understand why we're making them, or we also need your input to know which direction to take.
Yeah, and we also realized too that after, you know, the schools unified, the boards went through a big change, you know, and people, you know, were concerned about, one, visibility and accessibility. So when the boards were to, you know, married up to the specific schools, there was more accessibility. At least that's the perception that has been expressed. You know, so it's now really trying, you know, the board, we've talked a lot about, they're the ones that are trying to really reach out and make those connections and, you know, trying to drive that forward. So we're excited that you guys are here. And the goal is really to continue to grow not only the staff and you know, the people that are working for the SU. I don't want to say district because I get them engaged, but like I said, we're going to be continuing to recruit parents and community members as well as students, and that's sort of a work in progress.
And I'm sorry, and we're not just looking for people to be involved and give us input, but also for people to take the information that we have and disseminate it, and make sure that they know, you know, if someone says to you that, you know, the board wants to move the line between Pittsford and Brandon, you can now say, no, the board does not want to do that, and I know that. So, you know, that's really what we're looking for all aspects.
Yeah, and to sort of open up that circle. Did you wanted to comment?
Well, I was going to say that I decided to become an ambassador primarily from my community hat, because as a staff member, you are often approached by community members, and but I wanted to make sure my content was accurate. But I think that's where I felt the most the draw to this.
Great.
Internally, I feel like I was getting enough information.
Great.
So that was my impetus. Plus, change is hard, and I just, with respect to this, you know, concretely we're experiencing that with their change in downtown, and I think if you built any kind of parallel to envision what changes really need to happen to keep vibrant school communities, it involves this kind of work, and it's hard and demands collaboration. So
great. Awesome. Thank you. So Greg, can you go to the next slide, please? So from a commitment standpoint, the board has determined that their third meeting of the third Wednesday of every month will be, I said Wednesday, right? Yes, yep. Will be focused on the task force initiatives. So the structure of these meetings are really going to be, the board comes, they read the agenda, they break out into their subgroups, and we'll talk initiatives in a minute. They'll pound that stuff out, come back as a board, discuss, you know, what some of the next steps are, and then it's really about action at these meetings. And so at a minimum, you know, the third Wednesday of every month from 6 to 8 p.m. would be the commitment. Now, as you'll see when we talk about future initiatives, you know, what the initiatives look like, some are more aggressive than others. And so I'll get into that a little bit. But you may have interim meetings. Like, for example, when we met as a task force, we had, you know, established meetings every month. But then we were like, holy cow, you know, we have to do a survey, and we got to get, you know, this out in 2 weeks. Well, we can't wait till our next meeting because our next meeting's in 3 weeks. So there may be some interim meetings. I don't know if everyone on this board shares this sentiment, but I think whatever you can give is very appreciated. And you know, there's going to have to be flexibility, I guess, is where I'm going with that. You know, these guys are going to be here doing the work no matter what. And I think that, you know, there can be an open line of communication to say, look, this is a really critical meeting. We need you guys to be there versus, you know, maybe you don't need to be there tonight unless you want to be. You know, we can sort of have that dialogue. But like I said, I think that as you become more engaged, the goal is for it to be exciting work and for everybody to take ownership in that work. And you know, do what's, we just want to keep things moving forward, I guess is the right word to say that. So there's really 5 sort of key initiatives that we outlined, and as I was mentioning in the beginning, I'm not 100% on how everybody's going to sort of work together. So Enhanced Middle School at Otter Valley, so we did a preliminary sort of, I think you guys are all up to date on this, we did a preliminary, okay, this summer, architectural review, is it even viable to have an Enhanced Middle School at Otter Valley? Yes, it is. There's 2 options. Okay, now we would have to pay for a large architectural engineering review of the school to be able to determine how much it'll actually cost to build on to Otter Valley. So we can then take that information to the community and say, okay, here are our options, but there is an integral cost in there. You know, we don't know how much the cost would be, but it's significant enough where we need to get community input to determine if they even want to explore it as an option. And where that came from was the task force surveyed the community. We got 516 people, and part of that was we feel as a district it was expressed that an enhanced middle school benefits the district as a whole, and that is something that people would be open to exploring as part of this next, you know, phase of what the district will look like. And obviously there are external forces like decreasing population, things that are happening that are out of our control that we are trying to respond to proactively versus reactively. So that's, you know, sort of the conversation. So one subgroup is going to be sort of tackling that, and there's a huge, and I'll get into this, you know, there's just a big community input to that. So what does that look like? We want to do a communications plan that focused purely on unification, and, you know, what does a unified district look like, and how do we sort of work together to reap the benefits of that unified district. Also, there's a huge comms piece for the future of the district. So, you know, what is coming next, and what, you know, what are we sort of planning as a board and as a school, and how does, you know, how does that possibly impact the community? We want to stay on top of that. So, you know, we're going to be focusing time here to develop that messaging, not only messaging, but dissemination. Ambassadors are great, but there's a huge piece to all of these communications that talk about how do we get to the community, how do we get to parents, how do we engage principals, how do we engage students. You know, there's so many moving parts that all needs to be mapped out. You know, sometimes I have the idea, like I'll say to Jean, oh, I want to send home a printout, you know, to all the students' families. Well, there's a lot of coordination that has to happen, and that's not something that can happen in 2 days. You know, we really need to give 2 weeks, because they got to be printed and they got to be handed off to each of the schools, and the schools got to stuff the folders, and so we're going to be getting into some of that nitty-gritty stuff when we do the communications planning. Now, the ambassadors, that is sort of an opportunity to be able to update staff, community, parents, to actively update and keep people informed with the pure job of just spreading that word a little bit and getting people engaged and having those conversations at lunch or with parents, or, you know, and actually engaging people in that conversation and having the information directly from the board and from administration as to what that conversation is going to look like. And that doesn't mean it's all one way either. As we're discussing these things as a group, if there's questions or things that you'd like to challenge, that's an opportunity to do it as well. It's not one-way communication coming at you. And so the ambassador group is really going to be focused on engaging all the different subgroups, developing messaging, being available for, you know, the other subcommittees in the group, and being able to work together to say, okay, you know, we're going to be exploring this enhanced middle school. We need this, you know, the ambassadors to get this messaging. And so that way, you know, the ambassador subgroup can really focus on that initiative and just try and streamline it. Now, like I said, as we do this, you might go, Allison, you know, we don't need a subgroup for this. We just need to focus on X, and, you know, it's very fluid at this point, is how I'm going with that. And then strategic board engagement is really, you know, how do we engage with community, with staff proactively in identifying those opportunities? What types of materials would we need for those engagements? You know, down to, we've talked about, do we wear name tags or a vest or a hat, or how does that sort of look, you know, as a group? All right, Greg, next slide. I've sort of covered a lot of this actually. So with the enhanced middle school, it was decided that there's two options. One, you can build on. Two, you can build a super campus. So we need to look at, you know, what's the community really interested in? How do we start to execute that? And what type of costs are involved? Greg, can you go to the next one? So as I mentioned, this is really going to be the most aggressive group because we really need to have like a final by January 1 to determine if the community is on board with exploring an enhanced middle school option, so we can include it in the the 2020-2021 budget. So that subcommittee will sort of be, you know, the big push will be done January 1. Now, if the board passes, or if the community passes that initiative, there's going to be more work on that, right? Because there's going to be steps along the way as the process is happening, you know, as numbers come in, what are next steps? Do we want to invest in this? Yes, no, why? You know, so there's going to be, but the real big push for that is really going to be January 1. So there's probably going to be more than, you know, right now that would leave October, November, December. You're probably not going to get everything you need to get done in 3 meetings for that subcommittee. Yeah, and then the communications plan is develop and execute a communication plan that identifies the district as one unified unit versus separate building schools. And really in the subcommittees right now, we're going to sort of break out timing, what might that look like, next steps, and that's what we're going to be discussing, you know, at the conclusion when we determine which board member is actually in which subcommittee. Same thing with the future of the supervisory union. You can click next. These are just some of the questions that we might ask, you know, as ambassadors. You know, how do we recruit other ambassadors? What does engagement look like? How many times do ambassadors meet each year? We're going to be discussing some of that in our subcommittee tonight to determine what the next steps are in recruitment, and, you know, keeping ambassadors informed. And then I already mentioned strategic board engagement is really just sort of mapping out where we can meet the community staff. Obviously, there's a component where Jean, you know, communicates with staff. How often does board get in front of, you know, staff and community and that sort of thing? So that's all going to be mapped out in the strategic board engagement piece. You can keep going. I think that that's really it. So if you guys have any questions sort of coming out of that presentation, it's kind of fast and furious. Do you have an idea of what the initiatives are? And sort of, you know, you can think about where you might want to contribute your time, or if you say, okay, look, I just want to be a staff ambassador. I don't really want to engage in any of the subcommittees. I want to be here for you when you need me, and I'll communicate, you know, I'll be here to ask questions and communicate with, you know, the people that I come in touch with. That's sort of, you know.
How many more of us are there right now?
Right now there's 6, right?
7 or 8, I think.
7
Yeah.
or 8. Yeah.
But we've
And-
also just put out more word and to parents and community members.
Yeah, and we're going to be doing, you know, some of the community engagement that we're going to be doing when we discuss, for example, like interest in the enhanced middle school. There's also going to be a piece there that says, hey, do you want to be a part of this planning team? You know, so
You're the early adopter.
you're the early adopters, and we're grateful. But yeah, it's really, the goal is, you know, really to have at least a staff, or 1 or 2 staff members, 1 or 2 community members, and, you know, at least a student maybe, on the subcommittees to be able to be part of this process. Yeah. So, but just, I have to, you know, even just being here and finding the rhythm, you know, we've gotten some feedback that it can be intimidating to come to a board meeting and just not be part of the board, and what does that look like? So that's part of this process too. It's just getting people used to engaging with the board and being part of the meetings, and, you know, being able to have that 2-way communication. But it's a lot to think about too, you know. So, and for tonight, like I said, we're sort of finding our new rhythm. I don't know, hopefully it just clicks and we're good, but I don't, we'll see.
Great.
Any other questions?
I think I just want to completely understand.
Sure.
Because my impression when I sat at the convocation was that it's a transmittal of information.
Yes.
So basically, are we here to listen and just make sure that we are able to pass that information along? Do we announce ourselves in the schools that we are in? I'm not really clear on how this works
So-
back and forth.
The way I look at it is that it's really up to you. If you want to be involved, we're happy for you to be involved. If you just want to take information that from the board that we've come up with and disseminated them, whoever asked you or whoever you want to provide it to, I'm good with that as well. So it's as little or as much as you want to do.
Ideally, how do you see it?
Somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
Well, that, and I honestly.
Yeah, sure.
So if I were to add to that too, I think that one of the difficulties that the board always has is even though they're elected by the general public, once they're elected, they're seen as doing these things in private rooms without anyone's input and, which isn't the case.
Mm-hmm.
And so really it's an opportunity to forge a relationship beyond just the board members, to get feedback, input, reactions before things are final, and to have more people in the know of what's actually happening, and therefore be that ambassador to carry information to the grocery store or the soccer game or the, wherever people are. It's kind of broadening the voice and the impact on decisions that the board has to make. It's really much more, the attempt is to be much more inclusive and comprehensive when decisions are being made or things are being considered.
Well, and beyond that, this is part of the two-way dialogue, to be honest with you, because you're in the schools, It would be beneficial to have it be more structured, to say, because at some point we're going to be doing, we're going to try and elevate who's on the board and who does what, and we could also have like a staff ambassadors, sort of here's your board staff ambassadors, and make it a little bit more official, if you feel that would be helpful, when you're sort of, because there is something to be proud of, to sort of give that time and represent your commitment to, to the SU. So, there's a piece to that. Honestly, we haven't mapped that all out yet, and that's where, I think that it's helpful to have that conversation, because, it could be just, yes, we disseminate that information to you, you ask questions, you understand it, and then you take that and you go with it. Anytime, like, if you have ambassadors for a corporation, for example, it could be scripted, and that's not necessarily what we're looking to do. We just want to make sure the message is clear. But beyond that, there's a lot of work to be done here. So the more engaged that you can be in that process, that's awesome. But, again, as far as how you identify in your own school, we're happy to have that conversation.
Or not even in school. I mean, if you're on the sidewalk or your niece comes up to you and says, "Did you hear what the school board is doing?" That's kind of where I want it. And if you hear something that strikes you as, "Oh, the board needs to hear this," I don't need to know who your source was. I just want to know what that information was, so that we can know about it and try and change that or tackle whatever that issue might be. So really, honestly, from my standpoint, you can take it as far as you want to, but I want to be able to say to you, here's the information, this is what the board is doing, and you have it. And then if someone comes up to you and goes, "Oh, the board's doing X, Y, and Z," you can be like, "Oh, no. I was at this board meeting," or "This is what it is, check the minutes," We want to be as transparent as possible. As much as I hate that word, that's what we want to be. We want to make sure that everybody knows what we're doing. And I realize we can't go to everybody's dinner table and tell them all, "Hey, this is what the board is doing." But the more people that we have that are listening to us and know what we are doing, the better off we are.
Barry?
Just to add to the last part of of what Laurie said, which I agree 100%, is the disseminating piece really with your engagement here with the board can become more than just a data transfer, because you understand the whys and the hows and the thought process that went behind the outcomes, right? So you then could probably answer questions and maybe even give a little explanation around, you know, if someone says, well, why didn't they do this or why didn't they do that? Well, you can say, well, yeah, well, that was discussed and that was thought about, and here's kind of the reasons why they didn't go that way.
And we would give you that information so that you have it. Not, I mean, and if you don't know, that's okay. You can say, hey, you know what? I'm going to talk to someone, you know, a board member or whatever, and I'll get back to you. And we're more than willing to talk to you and give you any information that you need. And we may not even know the answer.
Or encourage people to come to a board meeting and have that conversation. But beyond just the ambassador piece, we want staff input into, you know, what we're discussing. Like from a communication standpoint, for example, you know, one of our working groups, there was a teacher that came, and she sort of said, well, you know, I think it's really important that you do, you know, union-wide events, like a field day, or, you know, and you start to have the students come together, and what might that look like, you know? So there's input from you guys, even from a planning, you know, from a planning standpoint, that's going to be important for everybody to understand as well. So, you know, there's an ambassador piece, but there's also, you know, an engagement piece if you're interested in being on any of these subcommittees and actually working with the board on, you know, strategic engagement. Or you might be that might be your passion, communications, and, you know, you write great press releases, or, you know, I don't know. So, you know, there's that element as well. So, yeah. So that's where it can be as involved or as sort of, you know, look, no, I want to be engaged with the board. I want to have the right information. I want to be able to talk to my peers and have that element. Or I actually want to be engaged in some of the planning, and I want to be a part of those subcommittees, and I want to understand X. I may have a really big interest in the enhanced middle school and what the ins and outs are and the costs of that and how that's going to play out, and why, you know, we're moving forward with that initiative. So I hope that answers all your questions.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, and I explained to each of these ladies that it's a lot of information to come and understand tonight. So there's an opportunity to think about it and either continue engagement or to say, look, it's not what I thought it was going to be, and discontinue engagement. I mean, so there's that option.
Absolutely.
As well.
Absolutely. Once you sign on, we're not going to make you stay forever. You know, it's not. There are certain. Yeah, I don't know.
No, speak for yourself.
Unlike some committees.
Right.
Yeah.
I know, right? You sign on and then you're not off until you're dead. Yeah, this is not one of those.
Well, and that's something that I want to start to map out when we sort of break out into our subgroups as well. Some of these are ongoing, but some of it's sort of tabling up, you know, what the board needs to do to continue to engage people, you know, from a unification standpoint, or, you know, so there's certainly things that are a little bit more ongoing, but, you know, I think it's safe to say it would be till the end of this year, you know, this school year, June-ish.
Yeah, so I think we're ready to probably break out into
Yeah.
subcommittees if you're ready.
I'm ready.
You look ready.
I'm so ready. I'm so hot again. I can't.
Can we go back to this?
It's like I'm in an inferno whenever I get up.
I know. We're watching it. Wow.
Am my face red?
Yeah.
Yes.
I know. I'm so hot.
So can you go back to the?
I don't get it.
She said this the last board
You
meeting
guys
she
are
was
so
at.
awesome.
So go back to just the screen that has all the different.
Yep.
There we go, right there.
Yeah.
So if you guys want to take a couple of minutes and look at those and see which one might pique your interest. Like I said, I'm not going to force anybody to do anyone that they don't want to do. But I think it's important that if you have a passion for one of them or another, that you pick it, you know. Yes, ma'am?
Can I just point out an obvious? We have 5 up there and there's only 9 of us here tonight.
Well, I
That
guess
means
you're
gonna
doing 2.
No, I'm just thinking, I'm just thinking you only want,
Communications be
you only
combined?
want two
We
on.
can do, well, we can put communications together, the two communications. I think that's fine.
And so can ambassadors and strategic board engagement.
You can, absolutely, absolutely.
I think you're gonna have to, because otherwise you're gonna have
Yeah.
like 2 or 3 people on a committee, and that's not gonna be helpful.
Right,
No,
no,
so
I
that's-
agree.
So we can break it into 3.
Well, I'd like to be on the middle school, but I'll be on 2 if you need me to be on 2.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll start you on the middle school. That's fine. So do you want to break everybody out to different? You know, we'll have 3. We'll have one
opinion, I guess.
group, and group.
Yeah,
I'd like to be on the middle school.
middle school.
Okay.
Okay,
Why don't you send middle school up there?
yeah.
Maybe
Yeah,
everybody
middle school.
does.
Go ahead, dream team. Go ahead, dream team. Go give it.
There might be other people.
Yeah.
I think I'm leaving tonight. We can leave tonight.
You can.
Yes, you can. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But thank you for
Thank you.
coming. I really appreciate it.
Or you can join
stay,
a committee.
Yeah.
Your choice.
but there's no pressure.
Just because we're all looking at you.
So just the date of the next meeting is,
3rd Wednesday of
Yeah, that's
October.
October.
Yes.
okay.
16, I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think hopefully there'll be more next time, because I think that's my,
So, and you'll see us at Harvest Fest on October 6th. If you're going to Harvest Fest here in Brandon, we will have a table and we'll be having all sorts of activities and hopefully a survey for people to fill out. So please stop in and talk to us.
And one of your first tasks might be helping to get some more people here?
yeah, I've been trying.
That's right.
Yeah. I'll sign up to help at the table because I'm gonna be at Harvest Fest.
Nice.
next.
Awesome.
Great.
I'll see you there.
I can do that, rather
All
than.
right.
Thank you.
There will be,
We're
yeah.
painting our house, I need to
No,
go paint.
please. Well, that's why I said, and there will be an active piece to that, because we will be surveying people at Harvest Fest on the enhanced middle school, as well as if they want to volunteer and participate on any of the subcommittees.
And I'm gonna leave, but I'll
So
either,
not to put you guys on,
not
yeah,
the middle
Derek.
school one, but I'll be either
Unification.
in the,
Okay.
one of the other 2.
Great.
So you're gonna do communications, essentially.
Awesome.
Because both of those, unification and future of the SU is gonna go together. So you're on comms.
Oh, God.
You're good at communicating.
Well, the future of the SU should be unification.
That's right.
That's right.
There you go.
Well, that's part of it, you know what I mean?
I'd like to work with Derek.
Okay, awesome. What about you, Barbara? Or Bonnie?
Ambassadors?
Oh,
Okay,
I'm not real locked in, so
okay. What about
I
you,
won't go
ma'am?
anywhere.
What about you, ma'am?
No idea.
but yeah.
I was
there's,
leaning towards middle school, but there's a lot of people there.
Me too.
Okay.
I don't wanna.
But,
My second option would be the
I'm
comms.
just have to be a
Okay.
process, because at some point.
So it sounds like we have 3, so if you don't mind doing ambassadors as well.
And strategic board engagement, they go together.
Yep, that would be great. And I would, if you have some time and you don't want to leave and you want to help with comms, that would be awesome.
4 and 5 will be
Because I think a student perspective would be really awesome, although it'd be really awesome to have you on the enhanced middle school model too.
I was gonna go to that
So,
one, but either one
so
doesn't-
maybe we'll have you just float.
Go where you'd like.
Or she can go home, poor
Yeah,
kid.
no, she's not going home.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
So why don't we have middle
All right,
school folks
dictators.
gather up there?
Yeah.
Communications folks maybe over here.
You
And,
guys determined who's doing what?
yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
And the ambassador / strategic board engagement,
Want to do over here?
Need to get the 3rd one.
find some comfortable chairs, maybe over in
Lori.
that corner.
So now it's time to let's decide. No. So, so we'll start with the first committee, which was the OV middle school. Who's reporting out?
Me.
Okay, hi Becky.
Did such a good job with our group.
Well, we had a long discussion, but I think what it came down to, and please anybody support, or negate what I'm saying, that it would be, the questions would really be 2 instead of 3 options. So really, would you want us to look into this, yes or no? Not here or there, but just in general or not. So would you support looking into a feasibility and cost study with the realization that this was something that wouldn't happen for 5 or 10 years? And then doing some pros and cons for why or why not to do it.
Okay, great.
Anything else? I mean, that was really the
Yeah, basically just trying to give information, a little bit of information, so they have something to say yes or no to, and then giving them the question.
Okay, so do we know what the feasibility cost will be? Because I have a feeling that's one of the questions we're gonna be asked. What number will be put into the budget for this? Because that will be a deciding factor for some people.
Right.
Yep. That was one of my questions on, we have in the past done engineering studies without having to have, we've added a board line or a line item to the budget, but we've never had to ask the public to ask to get them. So
That's correct.
Do we
You
know
can
that it's
still do
gonna
that.
get
It's
to
just-
a certain point for number, or?
No, it's
we
just that if you are putting that amount, let's say it's $100,000, if you're putting that in the budget, wouldn't you like to have some idea if people are even, if you're gonna be shot down from
Right.
the very beginning? Plus, it's very early messaging and engagement
It's
before you,
transparency.
before you ever get anywhere. So it's not about going
just
to the public
money,
for.
it's more
It's more to,
getting the word
conceptual.
out there. Yeah.
right, and getting people engaged and finding out whether or not they even want us to go down this
And
road.
right, and it then gives people options instead of just going, saying, this is what we already decided.
Yeah, so it's concept before the money.
Right.
And what do you guys need for that October 6th, at the Harvest Fest? What do we need to develop? I heard a survey. We had talked, what else needs to actually happen?
Well,
We want
we
a
were-
table.
One thing that is like flyers, so that
Okay.
if somebody wasn't ready to vote at that time, they could at least have the information and bring it back to their community, because one thing we know is that it's hard to get information from the smaller towns often, so
Okay.
at least because if we have an information meeting, people, not as many show up, right?
Like a
as-
postcard or something with a link,
Yeah.
survey link.
Or
Yes.
both, for
And
people
would we
that are not.
design that in-house?
electronically- Or computer.
Do you want to design that in-house, Jean, or, yes, so who would do that? Me? I pay a designer, that's why I'm asking, so,
We
okay.
have,
Well-
Becky kind of has a start to what the wording.
Yeah, if you
Right.
have the
And then
messaging, Melinda
what
can
we
probably
kind
do
of
a
want
lot
it to
of it.
look like.
I don't
Then-
think this is a
Me
outside
neither.
designer thing to
And
do.
printing wise,
We just print.
do you guys have like cardboard stock you can print on? Or that's something we could pay to print, you know what I mean? I don't know how many, but it's nice to have like that, good feeling paper. I know that sounds ridiculous,
To
but.
some extent.
To some extent, yes, exactly.
Can't be ritzy,
No.
because
You
that'll
just
be
don't want to
commented
be,
too.
right, you just don't
So
want
you
it
don't
to
want to
be.
be flimsy.
Okay, so, let me just make sure I'm clear. So we have some initial messaging. Do you want to send that to me and then I can work with Melinda?
Or
to-
with me to start with.
Yeah,
You,
so,
Melinda, me.
you guys send me the initial messaging, okay? And then I'll work to have it laid out and printed, okay? And then we gotta think about how we're actually gonna pick them up. And we're doing a survey, right? Okay, so do you guys know what you want to go in the survey as well? Because I'll need that information too.
I don't think we had enough time to talk about all that piece, but maybe I'm.
We really only have
I feel
one
like
question.
One
The survey
question.
was yes or no, if you were interested.
But it's also the
Background.
phrasing it.
The background.
That It's a 5-10
Right.
year thing.
Yeah.
That we had this year and a
So
half.
Greg, can you be in charge of that and you can send me that wording?
Yeah, but we didn't go through pros and cons. I mean,
We might need
as a
another
group,
meeting.
we didn't, but we could email each other, I guess, pros and cons and come up with something. That
Okay.
works if we're allowed to do that.
Okay, the survey, so to me, the postcard is more urgent
that.
because we gotta get it designed and printed.
Yeah.
The survey, we could have it really done, probably by October 3rd.
Well, we do have a meeting on October 2nd. We could,
Okay.
we could put some time into our meeting to actually.
Brief, check in on the,
Right, to actually, make sure
Finalize?
that finalized.
And we can get printed before.
Yeah.
Well, they're printing it
It's
in-house.
Wednesday. Well, I mean, it's just
Okay.
gonna be printed, they're just gonna
Paper.
run off copies of the
Yeah, I
survey.
just download it.
I think we should.
Like a trifold paper.
I think we should have that information before the meeting, or you want it created all at that meeting?
before,
I
that
mean, it
meeting
needs
won't
to
be a
create.
report.
No, well,
No,
no.
should have mock-ups of it.
Yeah, you should have mock-ups so that we can make any kind of changes that you want to
Yeah,
make.
I'll just do it in Google Forms. That's what we did
Yeah,
our
can-
other ones in, because that way we can disseminate it elsewhere.
Can you set up 2 options and then pros and cons of each and just let us fill it in? And then you guys can run with that?
What do you mean?
What do you mean?
So we wanna, the problem is we haven't come up with pros and cons yet.
Okay.
So we need to give you that information.
Yeah.
And to do that, we were gonna do it offline,
Yeah, sure.
You can
right?
still do that.
So
offline,
can
yeah.
can you create a Google form, because I don't
Yeah.
have time to do that, but have one, I don't know, one section
So
that's.
basically
One
survey your
question.
committee.
Option 1, pros and cons, so we can fill in pros and cons. Option
Oh.
2, pros and cons, so we can fill in pros and cons. And then
See-
that information will go back to you guys to say, this is what we want.
If I may, Angela, there's 2 different ways of doing that. She could create a Google form, anyone could create for you
Yeah.
a Google form, but you won't know what anyone else put. Or you can create a Google Doc, this is
Google
what.
Doc's fine.
And just put on each,
What
and
anyone's missed.
everyone has access to that Google Doc.
Yeah.
That's not, I don't believe that's violating open meeting, because you're just simply putting your input on there. You're
We're
not
not
coming
ta-
to any
we're not
decisions, you're
discussing
not,
it.
you know,
Yeah.
you're not
Right.
having any discussion, but at least you're seeing what other people, because that could generate your thinking if you see what someone else puts, and then that doc becomes a public document, so.
Do you want it to just be the 5 of you, or do you mind if everybody
I think
puts
everybody
their
should.
pros and cons? Okay, so if you want to.
about pros and
Can we do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
middle school
and-
here or middle school there?
No.
Middle school here or not at
Just
all.
not at all, or
What are the
Or
pros and cons?
Either here, in this building, or
Separate.
not at all.
But separate.
Okay. And are we going to provide, before we ask people questions, the facts of why
Yeah.
we're doing it?
Yes.
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
Yep,
That's
and
what we were,
that's-
dis- that's what we
postcard.
spent time
We spent a
discussing.
lot of time talking about that.
Yes, so that's the postcard piece.
Great.
If someone's not ready to contribute an opinion at the Harvest Fest. And the Harvest Fest is just one piece of this. There's going to be other opportunities to ask the same question, share the pros and cons. So obviously we can do a Facebook post, we can do a front porch forum. We'll have to decide, we'll have to think about what that dissemination looks like. And they were saying as a group, you know, from a comms piece, they can then task us with disseminating that information. Because we're going to come up with a system for unification, and that falls into future of the district. But I'll work with you guys on that as well.
Okay. So,
So I'm
anything,
getting information.
and anything else you need from any of us, other than just that Google Doc?
Well, we have to be thinking about format too. So tables, tablecloths, like what, like just, you know, make sure you guys have everything you need. Jean, do people ask you for those things, or like if the board wants to take?
Melinda is your,
I'll ask
and
Melinda.
especially because I am not available. from
Absolutely.
October 1st
So
to the
Lori,
15th.
you'll
I
be.
will take care of that.
Great, so Lori's got it.
But we have ordered an Otter Valley table skirt.
Oh,
Right.
awesome.
Yep.
Beautiful. Okay,
It
so
will be
Lori,
here by
you're
then.
in charge of that. Okay.
Yep.
Charlene, you got that?
Okay.
Don't make me check the minutes.
No, don't worry. We're gonna have candy there too. So.
Who's getting the candy? I'm just saying.
Melinda's getting
Okay.
the candy, but I'm gonna tell her to get the candy.
Okay, all right, so we got that.
Okay.
Feeling good.
All right.
Okay,
So moving on. So let's do the communications piece because that was next.
Right?
All right.
And that was some of it.
Yep.
We had talked about the
you having fun yet?
short term was what we focused more on versus the future of the district is another whole communications piece where we're talking about the viability policies, things that are out of our control, and trying to consider the future issues, including the middle school and all that kind of stuff. But in the shorter term, to look at some of the events that are coming up this fall, even, to get out, we talked about the need in terms of unification to look at developing a presence in local communities where it's a table presence that we talked about, and having information, having perhaps like a trifold showcase of the schools that we do have and attributes of those schools, so that people see this is our unified district, this is who we are, trying to get that that idea of that it's now a unified union. It's not just Otter Valley Union, which all the towns come to, but it's a union of all of our communities. And we talk about the need to go to those communities rather than hold events where we're expecting communities to come to us. That's probably not going to happen. So we need to work on identifying those events, and there's some that are coming right up. The Brandon Harvest, the Pittsford is having a harvest fair coming up. The homecoming is coming up even quicker in a couple of weeks. We might be able to have a presence at that, like at the football game there.
You have those, Barbara? So Barbara's going to talk to the events. What we also talked about was that Facebook seems to be sort of a favored medium in the district. So if we, if we want to share information.
Forum is becoming a bigger one too.
Front Porch Forum is quite a useful tool.
So, so we were talking about where to disseminate information and, the messaging that will feature.
Using the local media, print media, the Reporter, or even the Rutland Herald, in terms of having some spotlight or showcase individual schools to really, again, create our under some kind of vision of a unified district. Here's the membership of that district, and here's what we have to offer, and here's who we are.
And who are you guys going to reach out to initially to get that information?
We're going to work through, we have existing information on the district level that's already in place, and I think we'll use that and confirm with the principals. Go through Jean in terms of requesting any current information about the schools and the directions that they're going, what they have to offer.
Yeah, showcasing. So
showcasing first. Again, informing people. We're all on the same team. We're all here together.
That's right.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, and then our SU Ambassador Strategic Planning people.
Yes, so first we were asking ourselves, what's the ambassador's role, but then also how do we get the message to them? So we got a little bit into how do we get the message to them. So much of what Derek just was describing is what we also discussed, the different events that happen in the schools or in the communities. And we took a look at the district calendar, and really the one thing that popped up at the elementary schools were open houses, which have all passed. So one of the things we realized was we would want to have a plan in place for a presence at next year's open houses, but have it in place by the end of this school year, because we don't really meet over the summer. We want to just have it ready to go for, the start of school, and just ready to go to have a table there and whatever we're going to say at those events. But because Otter Valley is the nexus of all of the schools in the district, like Derek said, what events happen here where we could talk to people, and so homecoming, theater events, the fall production, the spring production. And then there's also what happens in the communities, like the Brandon Carnival that happens in June, the Pittsford Day, I can't remember when that is. August. The Sudbury Road Race.
Which hasn't happened, and it's probably not going to happen again.
It's not,
hasn't happened, didn't happen last year, and I don't believe it's happening this year either.
Oh dear, okay. Darn.
If somebody wants to lead it, that's what the problem is. They need someone to take it.
It was so perfect. It was at the school, and okay, well, maybe we'll have to resurrect the Sudbury Road Race.
Okay. All right, Barbara.
All right, so ambitious. Craft fairs at the school. So there's the farmers market has I think it's a holiday craft fair at Neshabie, right? So being present there perhaps, and reaching out to the principals and reaching out to the rec directors in Pittsford and in Brandon to touch base with them, see what ideas they have, what they would suggest, and to let them know that we're interested in being present.
So all principal stuff goes through Jean, just so you know. So you would craft a message to Jean, and then she'll push it out to the principals, just so you know, process-wise. The next step I would feel is to actually put hard dates and actually start, assigning who's going to be going, or,
Like a calendar. Have a calendar.
So we need like maybe a Google calendar, a board Google calendar. Internal working that you can share, so that, we can actually start to nail down who's going to be going in advance of something happening, because it's busy, this time of year for everybody. And then I explained to Bonnie and Barbara, it's also going beyond just you're showing up at this event. This is the message that we want, we got to work as a group to say, okay, Derek, Emily, are there things that we want to discuss? We don't want to fog the message either. We don't want to hit people with too much stuff. So we know what we're working on as a board. We know strategically what we want to talk to people about. So we want to make sure that whenever we're sending someone to an event, it's very specific about what they're obviously conversations are going to happen. I'm not saying be a robot, but that, okay, when we go to, the craft fair at Neshabie, we really want to highlight, the benefits of all the schools in the district and how happy we are that we're all, a part of a big team, whatever that looks like. So it's going to be important that we not only set the dates, but we actually become active. And then also, you guys all have name tags now. So it's really going to be on you to spark those conversations. So if you go to homecoming, it's, hi, I'm Emily, I'm on the board. We're really working hard to engage people, and we realize that it can be intimidating sometimes to talk to us, and we want to make that different. And how do we do that? And someone might say, I'm watching soccer, I don't want to talk, and that's fine, but you're going to eventually find someone that really does, and I guarantee that people are going to be happy that you talk to them. Yeah, they are.
If you prefer this kind of thing for your name tag, just tell Melinda next time you're in the building.
If what? What?
This kind of.
A little clip.
Oh, a lanyard? If you prefer a clip to a lanyard, just next time you're in the building, let her know.
I have like 8 of those at my house that are purple.
Let Angela
Any of the
know.
girls want purple.
So start wearing them. If you guys, just start wearing them. You guys got to elevate yourselves. You're doing a lot of great work. You want people to know about that work, and the more, available you are, the more people are going to be available to you. I mean, that's just it's human nature. So, how does everybody feel this went? I know it was like the first night, and I know that there's still some moving parts, so I just want to get some feedback on that. Or we don't talk about it now, because I know it's 7:56 and we are like 4 minutes ahead of schedule, but think about it. You know what I mean? Like,
we are pushing, for some stuff to be done right off, because we want to get out there to certain things. But there are some things that we can kind of take slow, our unification stuff and whatnot. That's going to be an ongoing thing for a long time. The other thing that I want to see for Harvest Fest and probably homecoming, since we probably won't have the middle school thing ready by then, is just some easels that have open-ended questions that are like, what does the school merger mean to you, or what does school merger mean to you, or
how
something.
Did it affect you? Or
right, how did it affect you? September 28th, 27th and 28th.
Whatever Saturday is.
Next Saturday.
Yeah.
So what do we?
Not this Saturday.
No, October.
Not this one, next one.
Yeah, no, I know.
It's September.
It's the end of September.
I thought it was
September 28th.
Yeah.
Homecoming is next weekend, not this weekend, but next weekend.
It's September.
No.
Yeah, it's September.
Next weekend.
No, it was.
But I mean, that one we can just, that one we can kind of do off the cuff. I think if we have some open-ended questions and are just there for the football game.
So wait, Bonnie and Barbara, can you drive some of that? We need to figure out. There's a lot of events for homecoming, right?
Yeah, but I think if we're just at the football game.
Okay, so football
Can't do
game.
it all.
We can't do it all, but if we're there for the football game.
That's the big crowd.
Okay,
think
so
so.
what time is the football game?
It's like 1
o'clock.
o'clock on.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 1 o'clock on
So
Saturday.
just be thinking 1 o'clock Saturday, 28th, if you're able to make it, and then we need to actually logistically figure out how we're getting easels and Post-its. Are you going to do all that, Lori, or do you?
Yeah, I
want
can
it?
figure that out.
I
Okay,
can
so
help
you're-
with that.
Okay.
Okay, and Derek can help with that.
But
Okay.
Melinda is.
Yeah,
your-
well, I mean,
She'll work
I'll
through Stephen
right,
Keith.
I'll
Have a
work,
table out there. And
Yep, I'll work that all out.
Okay. And then is someone going to actually be at that table?
Whoever wants to be there. I mean, I'll be there, but anybody else who wants to be there,
It'll be
you know,
Saturday.
The 28th.
Saturday at 1 o'clock, and If you can't make it, there's gonna be plenty of other places for you to be. If you only can be there for a half an hour, you're only there for
Right.
half an hour.
Right.
So, you know, it's not, don't feel, you know, and if you can't be there, you can't be there. So that's
And
the
I
way
would
it is.
really, I would love for
Okay.
you guys to start to get out of your comfort zone a little bit, not that you haven't, but actually go out of your way to spark those
But,
conversations.
and even if all you do is if you go to the football game and you sit there and watch the game and you wear your lanyard, I'm happy with that too.
I'm not as happy, but I will.
We're working them in slow.
Start tough.
I know,
You know,
I know it, I know it,
Let's
I
just
hear you.
get you in
Keep
slow.
pushing us out.
So, okay, so I think we're good. Everybody feel like we're moving forward and on the right course?
Yes.
Awesome.
Sweet.
All right, so, next thing on our agenda. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So next thing on our agenda, realistically, is the board professional development, which was our PG 101 board training that was just this past Sunday. For those who went, how'd you feel?
I thought it was pretty good.
Awesome.
Some really good takeaways.
Good, good. So, realistically, we met with Susan Morganson, from Ottawa, Canada. She is a new well, she's not new, but she's a PG governance coach, and she was wonderful. She answered lots of questions around monitoring reports, around, help me out, guys.
Policy, writing
writing
policies.
policy, why you'd want to change your policy, when you wouldn't want to change your policy.
Different accountabilities of the different, like,
Right.
what is the CEO's responsibility, what's the board's responsibility, where the division is, who answers to whom.
That's right. Yep. So we did a lot of that.
And it was really more fun than it sounds.
We did laugh a lot,
With
actually.
Legos.
We did. We had Legos.
You were at the right same table, right? That was like, you won some
Oh, yeah, we were the best at the
Oh,
Legos.
yeah, we were the best when it came to the, answering the questions. That was right. We did. We won that. So
You went straight to your policy, that's what you
went
did.
straight to our policies. Everybody else was yakking about what they
Right.
would do,
Here.
and we went
Does anybody
Policies,
read your
right
policies?
So
I got 'em out.
Oh my God, they're in my car.
There's a couple left over, so.
yeah, those, yeah.
Oh, I'll take one.
No, I have two in my
Okay.
car.
I used
Hey, Jean, you mentioned something about assigning, to the people that didn't go, assigning a
Yes.
class. so
Yeah.
Are you
I need
interested
to-
in doing
oh,
it?
yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yes,
Awesome.
we're getting that underway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, thank
So
you
we'll
for
get that
bringing that
signed
up.
Okay. So if you have questions or whatever, we do have some spots for people to take some courses online. So let us know if you're interested in that. We'll make sure you get hooked up with that.
Okay.
Now, that consultant is going to be following along with us. She'll be returning.
We're hoping that she'll be returning in November to talk to us about
The ends policy.
the ends policy.
We,
That's right.
when we met with her the next morning, Lori and Debbie Singizer and Melinda and I, we kind of followed up on what came out of the Sunday training and specifically talked about the ends policy and the monitoring reports. And she feels, as I've been experiencing, our ends policy is so global that it's just really difficult to tell you how we're doing because it's just so global. She offered to facilitate the two chairs talked about a joint retreat with both boards because, NR and ESU by default, because really the ends, why would we have difference in ends policies in the SU? So a joint retreat, 4-hour evening, not on a Sunday retreat, in November. So we actually wanted to get some doodles out and see if we can get folks to do that.
And she did say that as of the two ends policies, ours was better than
She
Barstow.
did say that.
So yay for us.
Your wordsmithing made yours a little bit stronger.
Ours is a little bit stronger. So anyway, so that's coming down the pike. We will start
And yeah,
using.
she'll be available to us as we need her.
Great.
Also talking about policy governance, next meeting, October 7th or 2nd, we are going to be reviewing the monitoring report again for 2.4, which is the financial stuff. It's very important that you read it over. It will come out before the meeting. That you read it before the meeting so that any questions you have, we can discuss at the meeting. We'll also be sending out, I think it's 4 pages or whatever of a monitoring.
How to read a monitoring
Right.
report from her organization.
Right. So that might help.
Get the monitoring report as a separate email instead of adding it onto the whole
The
packet.
supplemental?
Yeah.
Yes, I think we can add it as a separate
Attachment.
attachment. Sure.
That'd be great.
And we can ask Melinda to do that. Yep. Any other questions regarding PG and our movement towards that?
Policy governance.
Yep, that's us. Okay, so hearing none for that, then our next meeting is October 2nd. It is at Sudbury. It is not here. It is at Sudbury School, 6 o'clock. The other thing we didn't do tonight, which I'm going to just say, we need to talk about board evaluation. So, the evaluation that we do at the end of every meeting. So we sent the evaluation to everybody after last meeting, and only 5 people filled it out.
6.
Only 5 of us filled it out.
6.
Listen.
I thought I filled it out.
Did you just do it tonight?
Sensitive document.
All right.
It wasn't
so-
working.
Yeah, okay.
So when's it
Anyway,
was?
moving forward. So tonight we're going to do it a little differently. So tonight I'm going to ask you a question and you guys can just go around the room and tell me what you think. Which, so the one thing I want to know is, what do you...
look at the document.
Yeah, you can look at the document. I would like you to tell me, I think it's in our document here, the evaluation.
At the end of
It's
your
at the end.
packet. That's mine, but let me pull it up and see.
I want to see. I want them to answer. Sorry, I gotta find it now.
Did you? Yeah, maybe just, are you?
I guess this is the
proactive
one.
and future
Yep.
focused?
I want to know if we were proactive and future focused.
Yes.
Yes, no?
5
yes?
by 5? Yeah. Is it
Yeah,
like
all right, yeah, we can do
Yes.
fist of 5.
Yes.
Barry?
Oh, that's all we did.
Yeah? Okay. I know.
Big time.
See, there we go. So board evaluation done. All those who vote to adjourn at 6 after 8, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, we're adjourned.